was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil
What I am saying is common sense. You're a visitor. You're not even an American. You're a foreign national. You're here because we gave you a visa to be here temporarily, and now you're out there defending and supporting Hamas, a terrorist organization? You need to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shocked because we know that the president oftentimes resorts to very bigoted, xenophobic, Islamophobic, racist rhetoric when he is trying to scapegoat and deflect from the actual failure.
Why did you guys hear that some people did something every single time that clip of Ilhan Omar resurfaces? It leaves people shaking their heads because we are talking about one of the darkest days in American history, and somehow it gets reduced to a phrase that sounds detached from the magnitude of what actually happened. Millions of Americans remember exactly where they were that day. They remember the fear, the heartbreak, and the lives that were forever changed. Yet when people hear comments like that, they cannot help but feel like the gravity of the tragedy is being brushed aside. Welcome back everyone, because today we are diving into what can only be described as a complete masterclass from John Kennedy. Now, if you have followed Kennedy for any amount of time, you already know his style. He does not need to raise his voice. He does not need dramatic outbursts. He does not rely on political theater. Instead, he sits back, delivers his arguments with razor-sharp precision, and uses a calm approach that often lands harder than any shouting match ever could. What makes this exchange so fascinating is that it taps into a much larger debate happening across the country right now, a debate about identity, patriotism, accountability, and the way political leaders talk about America. On one side, you have critics who focus heavily on the nation's flaws, arguing that the country has deep systemic problems that must be confronted. On the other side, you have people like John Kennedy who argue that despite its imperfections, America remains one of the greatest success stories in human history and deserves recognition for the opportunities it provides. That clash of perspectives is exactly what makes this conversation so compelling, because Kennedy is not simply pushing back against political opponents, he is challenging the contradictions he believes exist within their arguments. He raises questions that resonate with millions of Americans, questions about gratitude, questions about leadership, questions about what it means to represent a country while simultaneously criticizing it. And that is why this video has generated so much attention. It is not just another political disagreement, it is a direct confrontation of ideas, values, and competing visions for the future of the country. Kennedy does not just argue against his opponent's positions, he attempts to expose what he sees as inconsistencies within them, using their own statements and public records to make his case. So buckle up, because this one is packed with memorable moments, powerful arguments, and some of the sharpest political commentary you are going to hear all week. Trust me, you are going to want to stay until the very end, because there is a lot to unpack here. Let's get into it.
Number two, frankly, I don't know why the president felt the need to tweet on this subject at all. You know, when you argue with a fool, you just prove there are two. And I consider Congresswoman Omar, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman Tlaib, Congresswoman Presley, I think is her name. They call themselves the Squad. I consider them to be fools. They hate America. They think America was wicked in its origins, and it's even more wicked today. They ought to be thanking America instead of calling America evil and wicked and racist. But this is America, and they have the right to their opinion. But I don't like to see the president even dignify their point of view. Besides that, I think that the Squad, as they call themselves, they are destroying the Democratic Party. You know, when your opponent is screwing up, don't interrupt him. Let him go. I mean, just looking at this from a political standpoint, if I didn't know better, I would think the members of the Squad were GOP plants. I mean, they think that illegal immigration, socialism, higher taxes, abortion are all moral goods. They think America, Israel, free enterprise are moral bads. That's not what most Americans believe. And that's kind of where I am on the subject. The president has explained his position. He has said, look, here's what I meant. If you're not happy living in America.
Omar laughed that Americans speak of Al-Qaeda in a menacing tone and remarked that you don't say America with this intensity. You say Al-Qaeda makes you proud. Al-Qaeda makes you proud. You don't speak that way about America. And at a press conference just this week, when asked whether she supported Al-Qaeda, that's our enemy. That's our enemy. They are a very serious problem that we take care of, but they always seem to come along somewhere. She refused to answer. She didn't want to give an answer to that question. Omar blamed the United States for the crisis in Venezuela. I mean, think of that one. And she looks down with contempt on the hard-working Americans, saying that ignorance is pervasive in many parts of this country. And obviously and importantly, Omar has a history of launching vicious anti-Semitic screeds.
Some people did something, said a freshman congresswoman from Minnesota, to support and justify the creation of CARE. Today I am here to respond to you exactly who did what to whom. Madam, objectively speaking, we know who and what was done. There is no uncertainty about that. Why your confusion? On that day, 19 Islamic terrorist members of Al-Qaeda killed over 3,000 people and caused billions of dollars of economic damage. Is that clear? But as to whom? I was attacked. Your relatives and friends were attacked. Our constitutional freedoms were attacked. And our nation's founding on Judeo-Christian principles were attacked. That's what some people did. Got that now? We are here today, Congresswoman, to tell you and the squad just who did what to whom. Show respect in honoring them, please. American patriotism in your position demand it. For God and country, amen.
That final moment hit hard, especially when the family member connected to the tragedy stepped forward and delivered a response that cut straight through the political noise. It was one of those rare moments where emotion, reality, and personal experience came together in a way that instantly grabbed people's attention. Now let's talk about John Kennedy, because whether you agree with him or not, he certainly did not hold back. He used strong language and strong criticism, and that is exactly why this debate has sparked so much discussion across the political landscape. Some people believe his words were necessary, others think they crossed the line, but regardless of where you stand, one thing is undeniable: his comments got people talking. What Kennedy focused on was what he views as a growing trend among certain political figures, a tendency to highlight America's failures while giving far less attention to its achievements. He argues that this approach creates a distorted picture of the country and fuels division rather than unity. According to Kennedy, many of these debates are rooted in fundamentally different views about American history and identity. One side tends to focus heavily on the mistakes, injustices, and shortcomings of the past, while the other emphasizes progress, opportunity, and the nation's ability to overcome challenges. That difference in perspective has become one of the defining political battles of modern America. What makes Kennedy's argument resonate with many supporters is that he frames it as a question of consistency. If America is portrayed as irredeemably flawed, they ask, why do so many people around the world still seek the opportunities it offers? Why do immigrants continue to come here? Why do so many people aspire to participate in its institutions? It's a question that remains central to many political discussions today. Another point that continues to generate debate is the issue of patriotism. Critics often argue that challenging government policies is a fundamental part of democracy, while supporters of Kennedy argue there is a difference between criticizing specific policies and expressing broader negativity about the country itself. That distinction remains at the heart of countless political arguments. What makes this exchange particularly powerful is that Kennedy relies heavily on public statements, speeches, interviews, and social media posts rather than constructing a new narrative. He points to comments that already exist and asks voters to draw their own conclusions. That strategy is often effective because it allows people to evaluate the record for themselves, whether you agree with Kennedy or strongly disagree with him. This conversation raises important questions about leadership, accountability, patriotism, and the role public officials play in shaping national conversations. Those questions are not going away anytime soon. So what do you think? Was John Kennedy too harsh, or was he expressing concerns that many Americans already share? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, because this is one debate that continues to divide opinion across the country. And if you enjoy political commentary and in-depth breakdowns like this, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned because there is plenty more to discuss.